Hello, my name is Charles Hall, and I'm a part of the Theories and Teaching and Learning course at EDGR 535, and Dr. Salisbury is our teacher here. Um, we've been learning about how to learn, how we learn as humans, as adults, as students, as children. Really like all the things, neurology, all the parts of the brain that work together, the hippocampus, all the other portions of it that's in our book, the all the different parts of the brain and different aspects of how to study and how to retain information and how to incubate and percolation and all the information that we've learned from this book. Um, but from it, we've also learned there are myths. There are a bunch of myths. For example, in one of the chapters, we talk about how repetition. I believe it's chapter 8 talks about repetition and how we've always learned, like especially with math. And as a math teacher, we've learned that we need to use repetition of the math skills over and over and over again in order for a student to understand and to gain that. And that's a myth. We found that out that actually it's one of the things of we learn the information, but then if we actually interleave it, actually intertwine these things of the skills that we learned in the past with the skills that we're learning now and constantly putting it back in, kind of like um, going backwards and actually looping them back into our lessons and looping them back into our homework and everything, it causes the students to remember better and to know when to use the certain types. But here, one of the myths that actually stuck out to me in this whole course is about left brain and right brain. It really like blew my mind because I thought I always knew about left brain and right brain. So one of the or at least knew some things about it. And one of the articles we had to read was debunking the neuro myths. And one of these, they have 8 in here that are myths about the brain and how it works. But one of them that really messed with me was the first one. And it says some of us are left-brained and some of us are right-brained. And this helps explain differences in how we learn. They said that was actually false because the left and right hemispheres of the brain work together. So there's no strong evidence that a person's learning differs in important ways based on the hemisphere being more dominant than the other. And then going to another website here, and this is from what's the name of this website? Healthline. It's right there in front. Healthline. It talks about how we originally think of the left brain and right brain, and how just a quick visual here, as you can see. The left brain talks about the thinking in words, the sequencing, the mathematics, the facts, the logic. And then the right brain talks about the visual images and the intuition and the rhythm. So like if you're artsy, if you're one that loves to sing and to do music, that right side is your side of the brain. And they don't mix at all and they don't go back and forth. But with it, I was looking at also in chapter 1 of our book of how we learn, the surprising truth about when, where, and why it happens. Benedict Carey actually tells us that one of the patients, Henry Malazan, actually had severe seizures. And it was one of the things that they thought it was in the brain. And so what they did was they actually took parts of the brain out to try to help and see if those the seizures would actually stop and actually did. But one thing they figured out was by taking the different parts out of the brain, it actually messed up the actual memory of it. But yet, with it, we learned also in chapter 1 that not only does it actually talk about losing memory, but it also talks about memories in 2 different portions. It actually deals with the pretty much that long-term memory and the short-term memory. There's some things that, like for example, if you write down like from a history class and actually go over those notes, you will learn them and remember it that way with those notes. But then there's also things where, like for sports and everything that sort, there's like muscle memory that actually keeps it in your brain, and a different part of your brain that actually keeps learning going, that you don't actually have to reteach yourself that part over and over and over again. It actually is always there because it's a muscle memory. So I thought that was very interesting that with the left brain and right brain, sports and everything that sort, that is not necessarily the part of the brain but that the brain works together and actually memory and keeping memory so that it actually stays. I thought that was really mind blowing because I always thought the left brain side of the brain does the math, and the math stays on that side. The right side was if you like did the music. So if you were like both mathematically inclined and musically inclined, you just went back and forth between the two brains. And they always used to make fun of women talking about they go from the left side to the right side back and forth really quickly, and the men actually just they focus on one side of the brain and then they stop and go to the other side of the brain, then it stop and goes back and forth individually. So apparently, according to our studies here, actually we pretty much the guys don't actually just go from one side to the other side and just shut one side down and the other side works, but they actually work both together, which is really amazing. I love that part. So this is one of the myths that was actually debunked in our reading and even on the website we just looked at. So neuroscience tells us that it is not the same. It does not work out correctly. So that was amazing. And this is my myth.